Thank you for staying with us. Time now for us to dig into the papers, and we're joined by media consultant Liz Hayfon-Asari, who is our guest. Liz, a very good morning to you. So refreshing seeing your face again.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Right. It's been a pleasure. Over the last week or so, I mean, it's been just about a week, and people talk a lot about the fact that you purchase something today, next minute, it has increased. The next day, 2 days after that. I'm on this group page where yesterday someone was bemoaning purchasing something for about 6,900 or so CDs. And the next time he went, a few days later, it was 7,500 CDs. So some of these fluctuations. What has been your experience with these as you have cooked, as you have gone around, as you have done the day-to-day matters in this past week? Have you experienced the same in any way?
Oh, yes, several times. You go into a shop and pick up an item and you think that you need more of it, and you go back and the price has changed. And like you're saying, it's overnight. And yesterday I was dealing with somebody who had to give me some money, and the person said that, I said to the person that he would give me the CD equivalent at the prevailing rate. And then he says the rate is changing every day, we have to fix the rate. And I said,
Wow.
the rate is fixed. You give me the equivalent at the time you're giving me the money. You change it at the time you're giving me the money. So the rate is fixed. I'm not the one fixing the rate. And I was saying to him that, unfortunately, I do not agree with the dollarization of our economy. So I won't take the dollars. He should give me the CD equivalent.
Wow. It means basically this person is struggling to meet the CD equivalent. Let's assume they took $300 from you, and at the time it was, say, 6 point something or whatever, and now you're looking at over 8 CDs, just about. So you see the difference per dollar, and that is where the problem is. This is also where the problem is for students, for example, who are here studying, especially on the back of COVID, and you have to pay fees or pay for this or that in American dollars, the American greenback. It's quite a plight. But that brings me to what the Daily Graphic...
Yes, but unfortunately for him...
Right. No, go ahead.
I said, unfortunately for him, if I take it in dollars, by the time I'm paying it into my account, if I was to go to change it into CDs, it would have been devalued.
Right. Anyway, so tied to that, in the Daily Graphic newspaper, Bank of Ghana tackles challenges. It has raised the lending rate, and it has withdrawn 3 COVID-19 stimulus measures. So let's take a look at the story. The Bank of Ghana has raised the rate at which it lends to commercial banks to the highest level in 5 years. It's gone up by 2.5 percentage points. Now, the bank increased the policy rate by 250 basis points, actually, or 2.5%, from 15.5 to 17%, the highest since 2018. Now, the central bank has also withdrawn 3 stimulus measures that were used to cushion banks against the COVID-19 pandemic as part of a raft of policies to support the economy to fight the rising prices of goods and services and arrest the rate at which the CD loses its value against other major international currencies. At a press conference yesterday, Bank of Ghana Governor Dr. Ernest Addison expressed confidence that plans by government to raise $2 billion from the consortium of local banks would help improve the country's reserves and slow down the pace at which the CD was losing its value. There's more on this story on page 3. But to you, Liz, a different cocktail of matters to address. First of all, I've heard from the likes of Dr. Casilato Forsen, who is on the Finance Committee of Parliament, saying that, or was it Okujeto Ablak, or one of them, saying that these measures, yes, but they are too little, too late. Other proactive leaders, according to them, from Rwanda to other parts of the world, responded much earlier, even last year. Now, where we find ourselves, it is a bit late. And though this is going to have some impact, I think it was Dr. Forsen, though it is going to have some impact, the impact is going to be minimal because we've waited far too long. What's your quick take on that?
I think that I tend to agree. In December, or even before December, we saw signs of going into economic crisis, the CD devaluing. We saw basically things going haywire. So I'm asking myself, did Bank of Ghana have to wait this long? Could the mitigation have been earlier? Would it have cost us less? Would it have kind of mitigated the suffering of the people, especially those who are below the poverty line, who are now struggling and don't even know where their next meal is coming from? I also agree that I think that it's a little too late. Well, it probably would help, but to what extent? Could we have done it quicker? Could we have done it faster? If we could have, why didn't we? What was the Bank of Ghana waiting for?
And those are the questions to ask. What was the Bank of Ghana waiting for? Maybe it had to do with the recent meeting in Piduasi. You know, members of the economic management team together with cabinet met there. And on the back of that, they came up with some suggestions that we've been told about that will be rolled out, including the reopening of our land borders, because that in itself has created its own economic stifling of our economy. So all of these measures, in fact, people have been calling for the reopening of borders on the back of falling COVID-19 numbers and all of that for a long time. So I guess we have our backs against the wall now.
Yeah. So did we have to wait till we had our back against the wall?
That's the question.
I think that sometimes the institutions that play in the economic space need to be proactive. Do they have to wait for executive to crack the whip before they jump?
Right.
I mean, sometimes they see what is happening. They know what is happening. They know the best policies to put in place to cushion us as a people. Why aren't they proactive? Why do they have to wait for somebody to make a call?
That is the big question. And just to wrap on that, you would always expect the political jabs when it comes to this. So you would recall that the current vice president back then was talking about the fact that they had arrested the CD, the falling CD, and he had given the key to the IGP. And in a recent retort, former President Mahama, you can expect this from both sides, coming and going. I'm waiting for Dr. Baumia's latest response. Hopefully something will come up. But the former president is saying, no, the vice president currently has rather been arrested by the dollar, and he can't be found talking about these issues. But it goes to point to how serious this matter is, staying away from the politics, how serious this matter is, because we're feeling the pinch. Ordinary Ghanaians are feeling the pinch in our pockets, and we want it resolved speedily. But let's move on to some other matters.
It also shows how our economy is not independent. We do not have an independent economy. Our economy is always riding on the dollar. What are we going to do to make sure that the cedi has value and can stand on its own, such that any other currency would be compared to the cedi on the cedi basis and not on that currency's basis?
Well, good point you make there. The economists will also tell you that, I mean, the dollar is more like the gold standard across the world. Even China, the likes of Russia. Russia has enough rubles to pay its international debt, but people want it in the American greenback. I mean, all of these things tell you that, yes, even the other juggernauts in the economic space still have to fall on the dollar. But I agree with you when it comes to the fact that we can do more, because a more stable currency will still peg fairly against the dollar. And we can all breathe easy when we are transacting. President tells ECOWAS Court to reform procedures. That is on page 16 of the paper. There's also EU supports TVET with 17 million euros, and GCGL AmCham to promote Ghana-US ties. On the international front, very briefly, unknown gunmen attacked 2 police stations in Nigeria. Then there is ECOWAS Mali reached no agreement on transition. And West African mediator for Mali, Goodluck Jonathan, left Bamako yesterday without reaching an agreement with the Malian junta on the duration, I beg your pardon, of the transition and a date for elections, his delegation and Malian authorities said. Let me just come back to you, Liz. How troubling do you find it that our sub-region has been bedeviled by these coup d'etats, and still in Mali, in Burkina Faso, and in Guinea, we still have military leadership. ECOWAS has still not been able to find its way around these dictatorial leaders, these military incursions. What are you looking at? What are you expecting in terms of that trajectory?
For me, it is very worrying. I thought that we were going to move away from coups and coup d'etats and stick to peace and development. But we realize that when a government takes over, when there's a government in place, the people's concerns are not really addressed. So it's easy to get a group of people to come together to agitate against what the government is doing. And if it continues for a while, then you probably would have the military step in, because people are always complaining and people are always calling for a change, and people are always raising concerns about what the government is doing. Especially when people begin to live, and I'm talking about people in government, those who have joined the executive, begin to live at an extent where those who they have lived with see that they have improved in leaps and bounds in their standard of living. And yet you who are working hard and probably hewing the wood and drawing the water can't even seem to get your head above the water. You can't even seem to get one meal on your table a day. And definitely when people start agitating, even though we do not want coups in the sub-region, you get the military stepping in because they think that they should stand in for the people. If it probably was a people's revolution, you probably even would understand it better than the military taking over, because I believe that when a military takes over the administration of a country, it sends the country back. But then what are we doing as a sub-region to ensure that every country is able to stand up and mitigate or fight coup d'etats? What are we doing? Because the people, when the coup d'etat happens, seem to rejoice. And in rejoicing, they are more or less giving their support to the military who has staged the coup. And then it becomes more difficult, especially if the coup plotters get to realize that, well, the people are rejoicing, they're standing behind us, they're supporting us. So they definitely want the government out. So we need to, as a people, and I'm talking about the sub-region, ECOWAS especially, we need to be able to draw the lines for good governance. We should be able to ensure development and development across board, not a group of people feeling better than another group. I keep saying that when I pray for those who are below the poverty line, because if I am struggling, I can imagine what they are going through.
And I totally agree with you. These are disastrous times for people who are eking out a living, people who are getting minimum wage or even less. It is heart-wrenching because you see people, and a lot of them are reaching out to people like you, I'm sure, and people like me every day. The Momo and the rest, we have to be sending every day, because these are people that you see. Your economic situation may not be the best, but you look at someone else's situation and you realize you must help. You must simply help.
And to think that it even gets worse, because, well, I can sit and say that my children have finished university, but I have people around me who come to me for hostel fees, who come even for chop boxes. I mean, they can't even send their children to school because they do not have the wherewithal to just even provide a chop box. And if you look at some of the basic things that they need, it's difficult for them to, I mean, earn a living, and therefore anybody who comes to kind of say that, look, I've come to redeem you from all these hardships and all this poverty, they definitely will jump on board and follow. But is it the right way to go? It's not, because afterwards, when you get a government, when you reinstate democracy, you realize how many years you've gone back and how you have to start and come forward all over again. So ECOWAS should be up and doing. We should,
ECOWAS, right.
they shouldn't just go and be sitting at meetings and making big and laudable promises. They should make sure that the policies that they are coming out with are implemented. And if they're implemented well, then the sub-region should be booming by now.
Here's a story that I really want to run by you. And just this morning, as I listened to the BBC en route, I was listening with rapt attention because of the nature of its context. Impunity drives sexual violence in South Sudan. That's according to the United Nations Commission on Human Rights. And in a 48-page report, I'll just quote something from them. They have spoken about how rape has been carried out during attacks on villages, and they have been systematic and widespread. And widespread sexual violence against women and girls in areas of conflict has been fueled by systemic impunity, according to that report. It's heartbreaking because in that specific community or that country, people also don't often report these things because it comes with a lot of stigma, not just for you, but for your family. And especially in the religious context in which they find themselves, it's pretty difficult. So it happens to you and you can't even talk about it. But I want to link that to child brides in our own country. In the 21st century, it is still happening. We have a Hotline documentary that touches on that. How troubling is it that even right now, children somewhere in the country may be in the process of being given away in marriage when in fact they shouldn't be, when they are still children?
It boils down to our economic situation once again.
Right.
So families can't make ends meet. They have a daughter. There's this rich man or seemingly rich man who probably is 30, 40 years older than their daughter, but their situation can be mitigated if they give their daughter in marriage. And I keep saying that child brides, the children themselves do not go and get married. It's the families. So we need to educate our families. We need to show them the importance of making sure that the girls grow up properly. Some education has started, but is it enough? If the family thinks that they are in dire straits and this is the only way they can get money, then they definitely would go that route. It is not the best route. We say that there are sanctions against those who would give up child brides, but are we able to crack the whip? Have we cracked the whip so far? I don't know. I know a few people have been reported to the police. I know they've been taken to the police station. I think that a few of them have gone to court and the girls have been released. The girls have been able to go back to school. But still, the family is in dire straits. So then what do you want the family to do? So as a nation, it should concern all of us. I cry for child brides because once they get married, everything stops for them. They are not sent to school. They are made to stay at home. They're supposed to start having children. Their bodies are not developed. They are maltreated, all kinds of things. And is that what we want to see our young girls go through? If we do not groom our girls such that they can take over the side of the equation and balance our development, then we are shooting ourselves in the foot. So there's a lot that we need to do as a nation. There's a lot that we need to do to ensure that the girls are protected. Right. Talking about the UN and the rape and of girls and women. I have been in Sierra Leone after their conflict. I've been in Liberia. I have seen it. I have seen girls who have gotten pregnant and don't even want to see their children when the children are born. Right. Because they don't even know who the fathers are. And so it breeds a lot of hate. It breeds a lot of displeasure. The girls go into depression. They are not willing to touch anything or do anything. They see a man and they are so repulsed by just seeing a man. So what are we doing as a people? The UN just coming out and saying so does not make it better.
And indeed,
does not make it better. What are we doing to ensure that the soldiers are well behaved? They behave properly when they see the girls and the women.
Right.
What has happened to our compassion? What has happened to our hearts that we can't see people and treat them like human beings, and we always want to kind of like degrade them?
Good questions, and all of us are involved in ensuring that the right things are done. Those in authority, those in the media, and people like you as well. And I'm happy that you've spoken forcefully on this matter. I had a recent interview with Dr. Obed Asamoah, former one-time Foreign Affairs Minister, in fact, the longest serving, and Attorney General as well. Interestingly, on page 12 of the Ghanaian Times newspaper, snippets of the interaction I had are here. And he talks about a number of things. And I just want to put to you, in any democracy, you want to look at a viable, sturdy, robust opposition to keep the government in power on its toes. I want to ask you how viable the NDC is at this point in time, looking at some of what they've been saying. And it's on the back of what Dr. Asamoah says. He has called on government to be accountable and transparent with Ghanaians, but touching on former President John Mahama's running mate in election 2020, that is Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, he says she was unable to make an impact in the central region, pointing out that she lost a seat in her home region. It has been corrected that she actually, KEA was won by Samuel Mills, the brother of former President Mills. But they lost in the region. And he says it could pose danger for the party in the 2024 general election should the MPP select Alan Tremartin, because he also has parentage in the central region. I ask this in a twofold way. Has the NDC so far proven itself to you to be a viable opposition, a government in waiting? And secondly, what do you think about what he says about another woman, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman? Would you like to see another woman on the ticket come 2024?
Very difficult questions. You're putting me on the spot. And I think that looking back at what happened, I do not look at results of politics except for parliament based on regions or constituencies. For presidential, I don't look at it that way. I look at the whole of Ghana and to see what impact has been made over the whole of Ghana and not the central region alone. For central region, it has always been a swing region. You cannot tell which way they will vote. It depends on the way they see their circumstances that they're in. And that will cause them to cast a vote for or against you. Do I see the NDC as a viable opposition? Yes and no. Yes, because I believe that right now in Parliament, because it is a hung Parliament, you realize that a lot more consensus has to be done. No, because I think that when we're talking about issues, we should veer away after elections from politicization. We are too polarized as a people. Let us talk to the issues and talk to the issues objectively, not biased because of the color that we are standing in. So I believe, and I have always said, that if the government is doing well, say so. So there are areas where the government is doing well, say so.
Right.
There are areas that the government is not doing well, draw the attention to it and make sure that you keep them to what they have said they will do.
Right.
And that you should make sure that they end up executing what they have said they will do. Because if you come and take over and you haven't kept them to their word, and they have veered from what they were supposed to do, you are put in that situation where even when you come and mend it, people would still not see it. Exactly. Because there's still a lot you have to do.
Exactly.
And that is what I want to see in our governance. I want to see our governance at a point where after elections, let's put aside all the bickering and the backbiting and the breaking of each other, and let's stand as a people to develop the country. The country belongs to all of us, whether you're in position or you're in government.
Right.
And so you should make sure that it develops and it develops properly.
Let's take a quick swipe at this. I've been told of a vehicle that recently was, a chain of vehicles whose parts were taken off. You know, some of these very common vehicles that are around, the Hyundais and the Kias and the rest, the side mirrors. So it appears out of hardship, and there's no justification for stealing, but some of these people are going around taking the caps of the mirrors and the mirrors themselves, taking them, detaching parts of cars that are detachable, and they are selling them, out on the market. Well, I'm linking that to the story in the middle spread of the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Thieves burgle NTC Accra offices. I'm talking about New Times Corporation. 8 offices burgled. It would take some courage. It appears people are becoming more and more brazen with some of these, and it boils down to definitely the hard times. I don't know what you make of it. Very quickly on that.
I'm trying to think of which offices were burgled. If I knew which offices in Times were burgled, then I'd know whether it was really thieves or if it was from insiders who burgled those offices. Because if it's just a thief on the outside, the number of doors when you enter New Times Corporation, you won't know where to go to take what.
So here are the officers. 2 people have been arrested anyway, but they are reported to have broken into the office of the managing director, the editor and deputy editor of the Ghanaian Times and the Spectator newsrooms, human resource and information communications technology, and made away with a Lenovo laptop, an unspecified amount of cash, and a Huawei mobile phone.
Why I say so is that I worked in Times for several years.
And that is exactly why I brought it up.
And if you do not know the offices, before there didn't used to be labels on the doors, but if there are labels on the doors, still you have to go around looking for which door has which officer in it to be able to burgle it. And so it's difficult to say. If people have been arrested, let's see if they're from outside or if they are insiders. Let's see if they probably were. There's a kind of a syndicate that involves people who work with Times. Again, my question is that what happened to the security at New Times Corporation? Where's the security at New Times Corporation?
Right.
I've always said that there should be security on the inside just as on the outside at the gate. Because anybody can walk through the cemetery, jump over the wall, and they're in New Times Corporation. Yeah.
And those are valid concerns, especially coming from you, someone who has worked with them. I'm just wrapping with these headlines. The entertainment page of the Daily Guide newspaper. Ghana didn't use Shut Up Beyonce collabo for gain. That's according to Kojo Entry, the maestro. And that Joe Metal doesn't deserve Artist of the Year nomination. That's according to Raskuku, who has been asking on Daybreak Hits what exactly Joe Metal has done within the past year to merit a nomination. I'll wrap with the Daily Statesman, where it says government will protect flagship programs. That's according to the information minister. You know, in recent times, there was talk about free SHS, planting for food and jobs, among other policy initiatives being reviewed.
And what are the 16? We know maybe 2 or 3. What are the other 13? And do we as a people have a voice? What have they listened to us? Which are the areas that we want? Probably agriculture, yes. Free SHS, well, I have had my take on free SHS for several years. I think that it should have been done slowly, because if my child goes to an international school and wants to go to Wesley Girls, I should be able to pay fees for Wesley Girls, because I've been paying higher fees in the probably JHS.
So you would want to pay fees, and you think it shouldn't have been across the board where
I think that we should have taken it slow. I think that we should have taken it slow. We should have looked first at the public schools that were struggling and looked at the students who are struggling. I am all for supporting brilliant but needy girls.
Right.
But there are some brilliant girls who are not needy. I won't cast my eyes there for anything.
Okay.
But then if you're giving VSHS, you're saying that all of them can go into school. But then we realize that when you send all of them to school, and let me take Wesley Girls for an example, because I went there, you begin to have the classes status in the school, because girls whose parents are well-to-do would end up bunching together. And those whose parents cannot afford the kind of things that the other girls have brought to school will feel left out and will feel should I say, depressed or in some states not good for.
So in a nutshell, we should have done this review a long time ago.
Yes, but we should have taken our time with VSHS, and I still think that we need to really look at it again.
Okay, Liz, thank you so much connecting with us this Tuesday morning, and do have a wonderful day. Liz Hayfron Asari is a media consultant, and she joined us for our news review. Thank you so much. Up next, we have sports.